Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to the Screams from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey.
This is a horror podcast in which two horror fans discuss all things horror, including recent watches, news, horror collectibles, and more.
And more. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Casey the Killer Kelderman.
And I'm Sam the Damned Lens. And let's
get screaming. Let's do this.
We've got a stacked episode.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not going to go that far. We have a fun episode to talk about. We have in a way, this one's stacked. This is going to be a fun one. Sam, you kind of deemed this month Gross Aughts April.
Yeah, Gross Aughts April. It's a play on Gross Out, and also just one of my favorite eras in horror, honestly. Maybe not a favorite, but an extremely nostalgic one.
yeah, this is definitely an era for us where these were the new horror movies coming out when we were in our early adolescence. Getting exposed to new releases for the first time, maybe getting exposed to these movies at a younger age. And just overall the zeitgeist that is the early to mid 2000s. We'll definitely get into that.
Yep. I think we picked, especially for this episode to kick off this month, I think we picked two very aughts movies.
yeah, we did. Yeah, we definitely did. I don't think horror gets more 2005 than the two movies we're talking about today. One is from 2005, that is Feast. Mm-hmm. That is a first-time watch for me. This is a movie that you suggested, but way back when we started the show on as one of the movies we should talk about. And then we're following that up with James Gunn's directorial debut, I believe, 2006's Slither. We'll be talking about that one as well. Definitely both live up to the Gross Aughts April moniker that we have bestowed upon both of these movies.
Yes, absolutely. Both of these movies are disgusting. I'm very excited to get into them. Do we want to do? I know typically we go straight into our main topic.
Yeah.
Do we want to do an announcement first, or do we want to save that?
We do. Let's maybe do some housekeeping here at the top of the show. This has been a busy week for both of us. This has been a pretty insane week.
What have you been doing is kind of a loaded question this week.
yeah, it has. And we'll get to the movies and stuff that we've watched then. But I think we can do some housekeeping right here in terms of what you and I maybe have been doing. Our announcement that we have to make. We are announcing SUPERCON's first official horror guest that is coming to SUPERCON at the end of September here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which we are from, and we host the SUPERCON Film Festival there as well. So we have the honor to announce our first guest for that, and we'll get to that in a second because I want to do some housekeeping on what else we've been doing. Sam, what did we do Monday night?
So Monday night, we had the distinct pleasure of going to Vermilion and judging their Fools 48 film festival or film competition, I guess. And that was such a fun time. There were seven short films, all made within a 48-hour window that we got to watch, judge, and bestow awards upon. It was so much fun. The Coyote Twin is awesome for hosting an event like that, and it's not the only event that the Coyote Twin and Vermilion Theaters is going to be hosting this year that's film related, because we got to announce a new festival that we are very hands-on with and helping run this year, meaning we will have a very busy September.
Yes, so coming up in September, this is I need to make sure I get the dates right. September 20th through the 22nd at the Vermilion Coyote Twin Theater in Vermilion, South Dakota, which is 45 minutes south of Sioux Falls, just off the interstate. Very easy drive, awesome drive to make, and an awesome theater. The Coyote Twin, it's good friends of the show. They were gracious enough to allow us to judge the Fool's 48 film competition on Monday. That was so much fun. And we got to announce the Vermilion Vortex, first annual Vermilion Vortex Film Festival, coming this fall to Vermilion, South Dakota. So if we have any filmmaker friends watching, listening to the show, submissions are open up on Film Freeway. Simply search Vermilion Vortex Film Festival. It will pop up, first year running. Should be an awesome time, 3-day event. We're hoping to kick things off Friday nights with a feature film screening, and then we'll play some shorts and probably some features, I think, too, throughout there as well. But we'll keep people updated as this journey goes along for this film festival.
It sounds like we just got Facebook page up, we've got an Instagram up, thanks to Shannon at the VCA. She's been great to work with. So follow us on those socials. I'm sure there will be more social things coming up, and more places that you can go to check out what's going on with that. And I'm really excited to, we're both very excited to be working with them and to be, building a film fest from the ground up, outside of a convention, because we love what we do with SUPERCON. That's obvious to anybody who's listened to the show. Like, we love what we do with SUPERCON. But Casey and I, for a long time, have been talking about at least helping or helping run a film festival in an actual theater, with it's strictly
dedicated to the film festival, nothing else. That's what you're there for.
Yep. And so we're very excited to be doing both this year. It's going to be busy. It's going to be a crazy month, but I think we're up for the challenge. I'm looking forward to it. September's going to be crazy.
September is going to be crazy, Sam. Why else is it going to be crazy? We have SUPERCON the next weekend. So September 20th through the 22nd is the Vermilion Vortex Film Festival. And let me make sure I get my dates right here for SUPERCON. So SUPERCON will be September 27th, 28th, and 29th. So the weekend after, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Tickets for that are available now at supercon.com, so you can get those right now. And without further ado, I hope
don't sleep on them. Get them right away.
Sleep on it. You don't want to camp out in line like everybody else. You might end up screaming about it at the end of it.
Because
you might need to tie a little bow on your finger to remember.
You might have to tip a pot of chili over on a cook.
Just don't tip a kayak. Let's just get into it. Sam, who do we got coming to SUPERCON as our first horror icon attending this year's fest?
We have Joe Bob's mangled dick expert herself, Angela from Sleepaway Camp. We have Felissa Rose coming to SUPERCON this year, you guys.
Yeah!
I know we're on a live stream on Facebook. I can't help it. How fucking cool is that?
Horror icon, scream queen. She is legitimately like the coolest person in every interview, every appearance on Joe Bob, every convention I've seen her at.
Yes.
This is super cool.
I have heard so many fun stories about how much energy she brings to conventions and how fun she is at conventions. I'm so excited to meet her, to get to work with her. I mean, Casey, this is going to be wild. This is going to be so much fun. Yeah,
this is going to be insane. I'm leaving the graphic up a little longer because, let it soak in. Felissa Rose is coming to SUPERCON. Full disclosure, we are trying to work to get Sleepaway Camp at SUPERCON as part of the film festival. We're working on the back end for it. It's not the easiest movie.
No,
to get the rights to. So, but we're going to try to work our magic to make sure that happens, and maybe we'll get to do a Q&A with Felissa after we screen Sleepaway Camp, because it's its 21st anniversary this year. And how cool is that to have Felissa Rose coming? You might have noticed her in I guess it was last year, right? Terrifier 2 2 years ago.
Yep.
Last
she
year.
was in Terrifier 2.
Yeah, Terrifier 2. She was the teacher at the school. She has like over a dozen projects she's working on right now, so you can kind of see her in all over the place in horror. So she has not been a stranger to horror or to franchise horror, and we're super excited to have her attend SUPERCON this year.
She's one of those scream queens that's like Brinks Stevens, where it's just like she's always working. Does not matter. Like she is always working on something horror related. And it's just really cool to see. It's really awesome that we're getting her in SUPERCON. I mean, this is a pretty big guest for horror fans. I think this is a treat. We're really excited. So, yeah.
That's it.
That's what I got.
That's one of 2 announcements we'll make this month. We'll leave it at that. So stay tuned for next time. It's just me and Sam on the show. You'll be hearing another person that is coming to SUPERCON.
Another person that actually fits into the Gross Aughts April theme very well.
Very well, and we might have already talked about a certain Gross Aughts movie that they were in.
Yes, we might have.
We might have. Well, we should probably leave it at that.
Yep, no more teases, but
no more teases on that.
Another really cool horror name that we get to announce a little later this week or this month. So, yeah.
All right. Well, let's power along to our main topic for this.
I've been so excited for this, dude. This first movie in particular. I love Slither, but I'm so pumped to talk about Feast with you.
Well, let's jump into it. Feast, 2005, directed by John Gulager, who is the son of Clu Gulager, who is also in this movie. Sam, who's this movie produced by? I think that's one of the more interesting things about Feast.
So, Feast is produced by Wes Craven.
And
the guys who wrote Good Will Hunting.
Who's that?
That's right. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Produced the splatter horror comedy, disgusting, like to a fault, Feast. And Casey, you hadn't seen this one before, right? This was a first-time watch.
This is a first-time watch. This poster for Feast, I've seen a million times. Like, I think it's pretty iconic in terms of aughts horror movie posters. This is like a very distinctive poster. I can kind of pull it up there. Yeah, it's a very distinctive poster if you're walking down the video aisle or on a streaming service nowadays. Yeah, this is a first time watch for me. No idea what to expect in this movie.
Yeah. I'm really excited that you've finally seen this one. I remember watching this. I watched this very early on in my horror journey. I remember going over to a friend's house. He had rented this. The case looked terrifying. This was back when I was still pretty scared of just about everything and watching most movies through blankets. And this movie grossed me out. This movie was like, we talk sometimes about like movies you feel like you have to shower after, and like the first time I watched this movie, I was like, this is a shower movie. Like, I feel as covered in viscera and bodily fluids as everybody in this movie is by the end of it. But it's fun and it's funny, and I don't necessarily think it's scary. As I've grown, as you continue to watch it throughout the years, like it's like rewatching Ghostbusters. When I watched it when I was 6, it terrified me. When I watched it, at 15, it was like, oh, what was I scared of? But Feast holds a very special place in my heart for just being like one of the first like splatter. I'd almost call this a splatter comedy. Would you not?
100.
Put it in that
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Feast to me is like maybe my introduction to splatter comedy. More so because I didn't watch Evil Dead until I was an adult, so this was like my disgusting, zany, almost slapstick horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love this one. Casey, what did you think of Feast? What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so I again, like I said, I had no idea what to expect going into this movie. It was a ton of fun. I had a blast, absolute blast watching this. It took me a second to catch on to the overall like vibe that this movie has.
Yeah.
Because every character in this movie, it all takes place in this small town bar. We don't leave that location at all. We're stuck there with these characters the entire time. And every single character gets an introduction with like a character title card and bio.
Yep.
And they like none of them have real names. Like they're like bartender and
yeah, it's always like, or like the honey pie.
Honey pie, yeah. Hero, like heroin,
yeah.
like
heroin too.
yeah. That like it gives a very simple, brief description of their name and then a bio about them, including their possibility of surviving. Like before anything happens, it puts in the possibility of their survival.
And what's great about all of those title cards is like on first watch, I didn't notice it, but like as I've watched it over the years, the thing I appreciate about the title cards is they completely set up one expectation before it usually just goes the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
Like the people that the title cards say are the safest are the first to go in this movie. I mean, I should say spoilers, but I mean, we always spoil movies, and this is almost 20 years old at this point. So go watch Feast.
Yeah, one I did not expect a title card to pop up for is one Jason Mewes.
Yep, playing himself.
Who plays Jason Mewes. Not credited though as Jason Mewes in the credits. Like that's not his character name. But like the character card calls him Jason Mewes.
Yes, it's so weird because it's like in the credits and like on IMDb he has a different name. I can't remember what it is. It's like Bar Rat or something like that.
Edgy Cat.
There we go. Yeah. And but yeah, his title card comes up and it's Jason Mewes. And his life expectancy is, well, no one thought he'd even make it this long. Which is really great. I mean, just I don't know. This movie has a sense of humor about it. It is a little rough in the opening. There's a lot of 2006 language, some slurs that are used that are kind of like, oh, okay, yep, this is from the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
But overall, the movie has kind of a self-deprecating sense of humor about it. And like all of these people who are, pretty much horrible, they all get like worthy demises.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough characters for you to root for. There's enough characters for you to despise. There's enough twists and turns with the characters and who survives and who doesn't survive to keep you interested throughout the entire runtime. Because you don't know who's going to survive in this movie.
Yeah,
and like all the character. I would say all the characters I have a lot of fun with. There's one character that was really grating on me, though, and we can get into that later.
Yeah. I think I know which one because I have a feeling it's probably the same one.
Is it the same one? I assume so.
Is it the owner of the place?
Oh, no. I like the owner, actually.
Oh. Okay.
Well, I don't like the owner, but I like that he's in this ensemble. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's one of those characters that you kind of just you love to hate.
He's a perfect asshole.
Yeah, he really is. I love that you have Judah Freelander from 30 Rock in this. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
His shtick, like he does it in every single thing he can. He just plays Judah Freelander.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just
a
love
little
him.
grating. Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Okay.
love it.
Okay. We don't agree on that then, because I really like Judah Freelander in this.
Yeah.
But I'm also like a massive 30 Rock fan. And I think Judah Friedlander is highly underrated in that show in particular. So anytime I get Judah Friedlander in a movie, especially one that's as gory and disgusting and stupid as this one, I love it.
Yeah, I think he fits the tone of the movie. I think he overstays his welcome.
Yeah.
Especially when it almost feels like he's riffing at points.
Yeah.
Where there's not a script, where it's just him
they just like roll camera and have him go.
Yeah, and he sort of stops becoming like friendly, bumbling Judah Friedlander, and he just kind of becomes an asshole.
Yeah. I mean, his body is like decomposing while he's still alive. So, I mean, I'd be a bit of a cranky asshole too.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it gets to be a bit much for me.
That's fair. That is absolutely fair. Well, let's kind of break this down a little bit. I mean, there's so many characters that it's kind of impossible to list all. Like for being a single location, low budget horror movie, they sure do have a really large principal cast. I feel like,
yeah,
you know, like there's a couple of the bartenders. There's Honey Pie. There is who ends up being called Heroine 2. There is
the mom.
The mom of the kid who you think. My favorite part is the kid's title card comes up and they just call him like the kid, and they're like, and life expectancy is, they're not really gonna go there, are they? And of course they do almost immediately after the title card. Like it's
he's one of the first to go.
Yeah, I think he's the second one, isn't he? After the
hero.
Yeah, after the hero. Although I guess Jason Mewes gets his face shaved
so
off
does the
during
vet.
that.
Well, after the opening, like the first attack in the bar.
Yeah, exactly. After the initial attack that sets the tone, like the kid is the first one to go after they hole up, which is just an insane.
And this movie has such a wicked sense of humor too. Like there's a character in a wheelchair, like there's no reason for him to be in a wheelchair besides like, yeah, we might go there.
Yeah, and his life expectancy is literally, they wouldn't kill a guy in a wheelchair, would they? It's just like, and it sets it up the same as the kid, so when the kid eats it, you're like, oh god, the wheelchair guy isn't safe either.
He's done for. If Jason Voorhees killed a guy in a wheelchair, there's no reason that these things
right. Yeah, and so it starts off with like a car accident. A car hitting one of these like creatures, and then cuts to a bar, so you don't really have any context. You kind of figure out as it goes. The characters that show up to warn everybody in the bar were the ones in the car. They're kind of the first contact with these monsters that it's kind of implied. It's never like explicitly stated in the movie, but it's kind of just implied that these monsters have lived out here for a while and they've just been peacefully living until this car hit their kid.
Yeah.
Like it hit one of the little monsters essentially. And that's what provoked them to, make themselves known to the humans in the area and start killing people out of vengeance. And I really like that it doesn't go into too much detail. It gives you just enough to kind of know, like, okay, this is like local legend, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't dwell on it because it's too busy just, pouring blood and guts all over everybody.
Yeah, it leaves enough for your imagination on where they come from, why they're here. The characters all have like speculations on that. They think, some of them think it's like a government experiment. Some think they're aliens. Like we don't need to have a full backstory on who these beasts are, where they come from. But what I do love, and I think of like other series that do this too. And I know people might be like, you're comparing Feast to Alien and Predator, but I'm going to compare Feast to Alien and Predator, where you don't have explicit dialogue stating like how their bodies work and how their overall, I guess like their biology works.
Yeah.
Rather, you just show us the classic show don't tell type of thing. And this movie does that in a couple ways. Tremors is another series that I think does a decent job of that as well, where they show how the monster might evolve or how the species works. And I love that stuff. And I think this movie does a great job right here. And I know this has a couple sequels too, so I've
never watched the rest of the trilogy. No. I love this movie, and I've actually heard 2 and 3 are very good. I've never sought them out. I every time I watch this one, like this is kind of a comfort movie for me, but it's not like a comfort movie in the way that like I watch it all the time, like something like Chopping Mall. It's one of those that I just like pulling out once every couple of years when I'm in the mood for something splattery and stupid, you know?
Yeah, I don't think this is one you can watch. Well, I don't know. If I had watched this movie in like middle school, high school, this would be like a constant rewatch movie, like something like Freddy versus Jason and stuff like that. This fits perfectly with that. So yeah, it would definitely be like that for me.
Yep. I guess I can't speak to either of the sequels, but I do love this one. I love the entire cast of characters.
The biology thing. I want to talk about that a little bit. Sorry, that's where I was trying to go with it. Because like how they like reproduce. There's so much humping in this movie. There's a ridiculous amount
monsters are so horny in this movie.
They are super horny monsters.
It's so funny. They're literally sexually obsessed, like desert beasts.
Yeah. And so they like, I'm trying to remember how this works. They kill, so the group in the bar kills what turns out to be like the baby of this family, the youngest.
Yep.
And they're like, oh no, we killed the baby. Like this, there's bigger ones out there. And now they're going to be pissed because we killed the baby. And they try to use it as bait of like, hey, we killed your baby. That does not go well because we get
Henry Rollins.
Henry Rollins is so good in this movie.
He's so funny.
He's so funny. I think he's one of him and Clu Gulager as the bartender are my two favorite characters in this.
Yep.
I think those two together they know exactly what movie they're in, and they're having just an absolute blast with everything they're given.
And Rollins feels so like self-referential when he goes into his like self-help type of speeches and this like he's very clearly like channeling the motivational speaker Henry Rollins into this. And it's his idea to put the baby on a pike out front of the bar, which only makes their situation worse.
That much worse. Yeah. So how they reproduce, I'm trying to remember what happens. They basically like eat the baby, right?
Yes. So they eat the baby and then they
start
vigorously hump against a car.
Yep.
While all of the bar patrons are peeking through the boarded up windows watching
this. I mean, I would too. Like that's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's really great. Then they like they make some comment like, oh, did they shit? Because that's kind of what it looks like, is they like almost defecate a new fetus out. And then there's a new couple of babies. Actually, there's multiple that come out, and it's disgusting. It's goopy, and it's the thing that I love about this movie, and we'll talk about it in Slither too, is like it's all practical. Like this movie in particular, like it's very like, everything you see is like being created on screen in camera, which is so cool.
Yeah, they're both practical, but they both do have CGI. Like you can tell there's early CGI in it, but it's used to hide some of the things that their practical effects couldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that it's that perfect blend of practical and CG. And even though the CG is a little dated, like because they're coming from a practical basis, it doesn't feel that dated, I guess. Like the movies themselves might, but like the effects hold up just because you're coming from a place where you have something in camera that you are just augmenting and enhancing with CGI.
Yeah, it never takes you out of it. And yeah, that's one of the things that you would think looking at 2005, 2006 movies would stand out of like, yeah, the CGI in this is not very good.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, they knew where to use it, how to use it, and how sparingly to use it, where you enhance the practical effects. And yeah, the practical effects in this movie are insane. They're incredible. They're so good. There's so many gross gags in this movie.
Yeah.
There's so many like just mutilated body parts flying around. It's Judah Friedlander like he gets bit by one of them, right?
He gets slimed. So after the kid gets swallowed whole by one of these giant beasts, and and you know they're all like screaming and like trying to comprehend what happened, and the beast like pops back up through the window and just projectile vomits slime all over Judah Friedlander. And it starts decomposing him. Like he starts
like slowly throughout the movie, just like slowly decomposes.
Decomposes.
It's so gross and goopy, and
his
performance is maybe a bit much, but the effects are incredible.
The things that I remember, like, so after I watched this in probably 2005 when I was 12 years old, I didn't watch this until probably like 19, 20 years old. Like I sought it out. I bought it on DVD just for old time's sake. But the thing that never left my mind was the Judah Friedlander stuff, particularly the eyeball scene.
Mm-hmm.
The eyeball scene, to me, like watching that at 12 years old, having watched, a handful of horror movies prior to this, that was the grossest thing I'd ever seen. And it messed me up. The optic nerve that just keeps coming out of his like socket. It literally gives me a little bit of gag reflex just like talking about it.
Yeah, it's almost a bit like, again, that's the comedic sensibility of this movie though. Like, no one's eye socket is like 8 feet long that it just keeps coming out of his eye. But again,
it's like the clown scarf sleeve.
Yeah, but his eye like just keeps coming out. It's so funny. But it's so gross. It's so and I think that's, you got to have a certain sense of humor to be into this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one that I'd recommend to certain horror fans, but not to others. Just because like its humor is largely derived from like, look how gross this is.
Mm-hmm.
Look how disgusting we can be. And I know, I mean, there was a time in my life where I didn't necessarily appreciate that as much as I do now. But I think like watching this movie now, having seen more things, having gotten more comfortable with gore, knowing what the artistry that gets put behind it, I think this movie is just a blast.
Mm-hmm.
It's constantly one-upping itself somehow, because I mean it goes pretty hard right out of the gate and still finds new ways to gross you out, and to, it basically finds new ways to dismember human bodies and disembowel people. There's a scene where in order to stop the monsters from breeding, they neuter one of the monsters. Like, no, they castrate one of the monsters.
Yeah, they just chop that monster's dick right off.
And then the wheelchair kid is like rolling his wheelchair around all over it, and it's squishing and squelching, and it's flopping all over the place.
Stuff out of it. Yeah.
Oh man. And it's just, and then those credits hit and you see executive producers Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And I mean, it's worth talking about for that alone, because this was developed under the Project Greenlight program, which are they still doing that? I don't even know.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not sure. But this was, I believe, actually the first feature that was ever put out through Project Greenlight. And it just kind of makes you wonder, like, is there another timeline in which the Good Will Hunting guys just dedicate the rest of their careers to producing micro-budget splatter movies?
Low-budget horror movies, yeah.
Yeah, because, like, I mean, to me, this is a really cool movie. Like, this is something that it both feels of its time but completely unique. Like, there's nothing else that's quite like Feast. I used to describe it as like, oh, it's like if Rob Zombie did a Tremors remake, which
that's pretty accurate. Yeah,
to an extent that's pretty accurate, but I also think like there's enough personal stamp that John Gulager puts in this to where, like, you can tell it's not a Rob Zombie movie, but like that's a good reference point, I feel like,
Yeah. This doesn't feel like a movie that could come out any other time than in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the best way possible. And props to Matt Damon and Ben Affleck for taking a risk on a movie like this. Like, this is not again, people talk about all the time horror comedies, and I would definitely put Feast as a horror comedy. It's a very specific type of horror comedy, more of like splatter and gore comedy. But still, like, those don't make money unless your name is Ghostbusters. Those don't make money. And for them to take a risk on this movie with a pretty large size cast, even though it is a one location movie, it's a large cast and a lot of practical effects and a lot of blood and gore and goop that you need to introduce in this movie. So props to Ben Affleck, Matt Damon on taking a risk on Feast in 2005. I pulled up the trivia for this movie. There was talks at one point of those two being in this movie as well.
Oh, really?
Of playing the brother duo. The one that's the like hothead.
Oh,
and the other one that's in the wheelchair.
You know what? I could see them being in those roles. I really could.
Which one? Here's the pitch. Which one do you put in the wheelchair and which one's the hothead? I think it's a pretty easy answer.
Well, so obvious choice is like Ben Affleck's the hothead, Matt Damon is in the wheelchair. But I think they should have gone the opposite way.
Switched it around?
Yeah, I think they should have let both of them play against type. I think that would have been a more interesting way to go. But either way, like, I don't know. I like that they produced it, but I like that they're actually not in it. I feel like that would have broken the illusion for me slightly. Like,
It wouldn't have because Jason Mewes plays himself, and they literally introduced Jason Mewes as himself in the first like 5 minutes.
I suppose that's true. And like, Judah Friedlander, and honestly, Jenny Wade, who plays Honey Pie, has kind of, I mean, she's not like a household name, but I feel like she's gone on to do quite a bit, and I know her from quite a few other projects that she's done. Speaking of, she has my favorite. I think Jenny Wade as Honey Pie has my favorite moment in the whole movie.
Okay.
And it's the scene where she convinces them that she can get to the truck and back it up and get them all to safety. And she gets to the truck and it starts and she just peels out and leaves everybody, and that's just it. That's it for the rest of the movie, and she's in both of the sequels. So I'll be interested. After this, I might actually seek out Feast 2 Sloppy Seconds and Feast 3 whatever that one's called, because I don't know. It reminds me so much, that scene reminds me so much of the Dine and Dash episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or not, of that 70s show.
70s show.
Yeah, where Kelso leaves them all behind. It just, that's what it feels like. I mean, it is. It's that same gag, but just with mutant sex monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get, I mean, I don't know.
Do you have any final thoughts on Feast before we slither on to Slither?
Ooh, good pun. All I have to say on Feast is that I feel like this is one of those that it's not necessarily like underseen. I do feel like a lot of people have seen it. Like you said, the poster was iconic. It was impossible to escape in the mid 2000s if you were in the horror section. But I do feel like there's still a large portion of people who have either just kind of forgotten about this movie or just missed it because it wasn't like a huge on the radar release. But it's kind of just an interesting, neat little movie that I'm just really glad exists and that I hold an extreme amount of nostalgia for. And if you like splatter comedy at all, I really think that you should check out Feast because it's great. Like I'm glad you watched it. I'm glad we're talking about it on the pod because this is for a long time just been one of my my like unsung favorites. So what about you? Final thoughts on Feast?
Yeah, I think I said in my Letterboxd review, this is the most Spike TV movie to ever exist, and I stand by that. This feels like a movie that would, and it might have, for all I know, played consistently on Spike TV. And it
probably did.
It probably did. It's kind of perfect for that audience. I don't think it goes as crazy as some of the Spike TV, like actual produced stuff goes. But I think the audience for that is the audience for this, which for us in 2005, we would have been 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
That's kind of the audience for this. It has that type of humor, but also like I think there's enough for anyone. You don't have to be a 13-year-old boy to like Feast. Like I think there's enough for anyone to like this movie. Yeah, there is some dated stuff on this movie in terms of like dialogue, but it's not enough that it takes you out of it or just is distracting. And it's the asshole characters doing it. And if the asshole characters are the ones saying it, I have less of a problem because you know what's going to happen to them. And what you want to have to happen to them happens. This movie is a ton of fun. I would highly recommend it to everyone. I think both of these movies play well together as well for a double feature. It's a pretty gross double feature if you're down for it, but they're both fun. Like I think that's the thing too, is that you're going to have a ton of fun watching both of these movies.
Yeah. I will genuinely be interested to see where we fall on our next episode of Gross Aughts.
I am too, because I have not seen either of those.
From what I remember, I haven't even seen one of them that we're covering, but the one that I do remember, I don't remember there being a lot of humor in it. So I'll be curious to see how we respond in 2 weeks. But anyways, let's move on to our next film in this Gross Aughts April double feature. I think this one's grosser than the last one even. We're talking 2006's Slither from writer-director James Gunn, his directorial debut, starring Nathan Fillion, Michael Rooker, Elizabeth Banks, amongst others. We'll talk about them later. But that's our three main core cast members. Again, talk about an iconic poster, an iconic trailer for this movie as well. Yeah, because that's one of the first things I remember. I remember this trailer on like TV spots for it, and I remember the poster. And again, it might have been one of those movies that probably played on Spike TV. Probably.
That I remember those too. So, this is. I didn't watch this until. I don't know. I might have been in high school when I watched this. But yeah, this is. I've seen this movie. I don't know, half a dozen times. It's one of Kayla's favorite movies. It's one of my favorite aughts horror movies. I love. I think it's my. I don't know if it's my favorite James Gunn movie, but I love the right out of the gate. This dude, for me, kind of hits a home run.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I don't think it's my favorite James Gunn, but I do think that this is right out of the gate such a strong directorial debut that tells you exactly like where James Gunn is going to go.
Yeah.
I just, yeah. I think I'm like you. I don't think I actually ended up watching this until I was probably closer to like 17, 18. But I definitely remember when the trailer was all over the place. The poster was gross. Like I'm not good with snakes or animals that don't have legs. Like that's always been kind of I'm not necessarily scared of them. They creep me out, you know, like there's just a little bit of like, ugh. And so every time I saw that poster with the bathtub, the arm hanging over the bathtub and all the slugs coming towards it, just like, oh God, that got me, you know, and the slug sequences in Slither, it's gross. It's a gnarly, like it's a skin crawling kind of movie for sure. Yeah, let's get into Slither.
Yeah, I think both of these do, Feast and Slither do a great job, where Feast is all in one location, but it's very clearly this is a small town area. Everyone knows everybody. Slither is also that, set in a small town. I believe it's during like a hunting season.
Yeah.
In this small town. So there are outsiders there as well, but it feels like this is like the town's kind of big celebration. The town's all kind of coming together. And you have Nathan Fillion, who's like he's the sheriff of this small town. And he grew up with Elizabeth Banks, she's playing a teacher. She's the girl next door in this movie, and she's married to Michael Rooker. And if you have seen Michael Rooker in anything, you know the character he's playing. He's an asshole.
Yes. This was him and James Gunn's first collaboration together too. And
well, it's his first movie.
Well, yeah, but he hadn't even. I mean, there are people that I feel like James Gunn still works with, just from like the scripts that he wrote. Whereas like this was like their first collaboration, even just something that he wrote. Which I also learned today that he did not intend on directing this. That he was just going to sell this script to get enough money to produce and direct Super. But the producer that picked up Slither wanted him to actually try his hand at directing it. So that was kind of cool. I was like, I don't see anybody besides James Gunn directing this, to be honest. Like who else in this time period of horror would you expect to direct this?
Again, you would have something more along the lines of Feast. And I think these movies are pretty close to each other, but I think Feast has a little bit of a harder edge to it.
Yeah.
Whereas Slither is like firmly like tongue in cheek. This is the biggest budget Troma movie.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
It really is. It's a Troma movie with like the Shivers or Night of the Creeps vibe to it, where it has that almost like 1950s sci-fi aesthetic to it, with 80s practical effects and modern technology as well, with that James Gunn wicked sense of humor. Yeah.
And some really inspired needle drops in this. Like he has always been really good at needle drops. This movie, the opening with the comet coming towards like it starts in space, like all the great sci-fi horrors. I'm a sucker for a comet movie. It's very reminiscent of, like you said, Night of the Creeps. Even the Blob, like the 80s Blob, it feels very similar in so many ways. And it definitely has a little bit of that Frank Henenlotter aspect to it too. And he's even there are so many Easter eggs in this movie. James Gunn just packed this with his horror Easter eggs, and they're not like the horror Easter eggs that you see so many people using. You know, it's not oh, it's the Carpenter sisters and the new Screams or whatever. Like you see Henenlotter's name on like businesses in the background, and like and you know, just a bunch of different Troma stuff.
Uncle
Like,
Lloyd gets a cameo.
yeah, Uncle Lloyd gets a cameo. Like, this is a movie that's very much it's taking those like B movies of the 80s, 90s, even the 50s, and it's just like it's updating it for a mid 2000s audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it largely works. Like we talked about in Feast, the practical effects melding with the CGI is pretty solid, especially for this time period. There are a few moments where it's like, oh, that tentacle looks a little too CG augmented. But I don't know. I watched some behind the scenes stuff. Do you have the Scream Factory Blu-ray of this?
I do.
Sorry. Okay. I need to get that because I was able to see some of the special features and stuff on YouTube and like clips and stuff. But I want to actually get the Scream Factory Blu-ray of this because the making of this movie seems very fascinating to me. So
yeah, I think the CGI pretty much blends pretty seamlessly in this movie. And if it is like, hey, yeah, that's a little CGI, it's like it doesn't take you out of it though.
yeah, exactly.
Like you're still firmly engrossed in the entire movie. Emphasis on the gross. And
yeah,
yeah, and again, like this feels like a perfect representation of small town America too. Like it feels like a town I grew up, grew up in, like the people you would know. And Nathan Fillion is such a great like bumbling hero. He's the perfect like Kurt Russell type in this movie where it's sure he's the hero, but he's still just a dude and he's kind of just a goofball dude. And it's not like over the top at all.
Yeah, exactly. It feels really inspired by Jack Burton in Big Trouble in Little China, where he's like the archetypal, oh, he's the handsome white guy who's gonna save everybody. But really he's not.
Yeah.
He's not the reason anything happens. He tries.
He tries.
And he helps, but it's largely like honestly, it's the two women that he's teaming up with that really end up saving the day. And I love the gag where he's like helping the teenage girl, she saves him, and he literally tells her like as they're leaving the scene, like, but when people ask, I'm gonna tell it the other way. And she goes, what? And he goes, like I saved you.
Yeah.
And then they bring that back. Like one of the last lines of the movie is him going up to Elizabeth Banks and being like, hey, did so and so tell you I saved her?
Yeah. Or there's the setup of the grenade, the one single grenade that they have in this town, and he makes sure to go get it, to use it, and he like pulls the pin and gets it knocked out of his hands, and he like stumbles through trying to pick it up again, and then
he ends up
dropping it in the swimming pool.
Yep. And then Elizabeth Banks has to shoot the oxygen tank to save the day.
They save his ass every time, but yeah. And I think that's the thing where like someone like Chris Pratt tries to do that nowadays. And I think in the Guardians movies is where he best pulls it off.
Yeah.
Working with James Gunn of playing like the typical white guy hero, but also he's just very bumbling and not completely competent in what he's doing.
Yeah.
And you see Pratt do that in other stuff, and it just doesn't work. But James Gunn really has a firm grasp on that balance. And you have to have a balance when you play someone like the Jack Burton type of character. And like Carpenter nails it perfectly, obviously, in Big Trouble. And I think Nathan Fillion is so great in this movie. And I think he plays that type perfect in this.
Yeah. This is one of those movies that it doesn't need a sequel, but like if we were hypothetically on like Slither 8 by now, I wouldn't be mad about it. You know what I mean?
Or even I would love to see like him do something else, not necessarily in like this universe type of thing, but like him and Nathan Fillion just team up again to do another low budget horror movie. I would love to see that.
Even if it's something more like, oh, it's a supernatural adventure like Big Trouble in Little China, you know, something maybe more inspired by that, like, genre wise. But you know, now he's making a Superman movie, I guess, which is all good and well, but it's like, it's Superman. Who cares?
He's leading DC now. He's onto bigger things. But
and I mean, I'm proud of him. I love James Gunn. I think it's great that he went from being a small Missouri kid to being literally like the chairman of one of the biggest comic book movie studios ever. But I want more like this. I hope he kind of pulls a James Wan and he gets a few of these big superhero things under his belt now, and he goes back and he does something crazy like what Wan did with Malignant, you know?
Yeah, and so let's jump into a bit of the plot of this movie. So again, you get like the stuff, you get the outer space opening, you get the setup of all the characters. We kind of explained who they are. Michael Rooker again is another. He's an MVP of this movie. I think he's so good in this, and he's under so much makeup in this movie.
Oh God, he actually dislocated his arm in the, like, where his arm's turning into like kind of a floppy tentacle. The heaviness of the thing apparently actually dislocated his shoulder when he like goes to flop around and knock the lamp off and run out. And I'm like, that's insane. Like
it's so funny when that happens too.
It is, and all the cops are standing there with their guns out, like, what the hell was that?
And like how he so like the thing is, like, the thing that takes over his body, Michael Rooker, is basically, it's a world eater. It wants to come take over our entire world, and how it does that is releasing these slugs everywhere, and they get into your mouth, and that's how you die or become like a zombie.
Yeah, it's like a hive mind thing.
Yeah. And the poster sets up that there's this high school girl who, she gets one of them in her mouth, and she begins to like see the planet that they came from, and
which is one of the coolest scenes in the whole movie.
It's super cool scene. I think she learns maybe a little too much
from like the 10 seconds that she sees.
The 10 seconds that she sees literally just these slugs take over a world. She like figures out, like, no, like they're a hive, and there's a queen, and you need to kill the main one. And she learns maybe a little too much. But that aside, it's a super cool scene, and we figure out how we have to stop these creatures. But Michael Rooker in this movie goes through so much as a character, and he's so goofy and gross, like pretty much the entire movie. He's under so many different types of makeup. Like when he first becomes like getting sick and this thing starts to infest his body, his skin is just like bubbling everywhere and like drooping at parts.
He's got the blisters all up his chest with like it's almost like a vaginal opening where two tentacles come out. And he uses the two tentacles that protrude from his chest to impregnate his mistress, essentially a woman that he's kind of pursuing an affair with. He's being unfaithful towards Elizabeth Banks, who also has a kind of unrequited thing with Nathan Fillion. There's a bit of a love triangle.
Yeah, they were like high school
sweethearts.
Lovers.
Yeah. So I think I want to call her Darla, but it's because Elizabeth Banks's name is Starla. But it's his mistress who after the parasite takes over, who impregnates. Her scene in the barn is just one of the, like, it's
gross,
nasty,
and it's so funny too.
Yeah, because I mean, she is just a balloon with a little head and a couple of hands sticking out. It's the most
Troma part of this movie.
Yeah, and it's like it took the blueberry scene from Willy Wonka, or from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and just like cranked it up to 11.
She's probably like 20 foot feet, just round, and then you
Yeah.
can see this head sticking into it, and she's like constantly hungry and
And it's
only eating raw meat.
practical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. When she asks them, could you just get me a little bit of that possum over there? It's so gross, but it's perfect. Like the humor in this is so like it's very James Gunn.
Yeah.
And it's definitely like I don't know. It's kind of funny. I don't think this one is quite as like it's grosser and it's more of a trauma movie, but I don't think it's as how do I want to say it? Like it's not as like edgy or edgelordish as Super is, I feel like.
No,
Like I
no,
feel
not at
like
all.
I feel like Super goes I feel like Super goes further over the line than this one does.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like this
Super
one
is definitely a dark comedy. This one's just kind of a fun, gross
it's
out comedy. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like there are dark moments, but it's
Yeah.
mostly just fun.
Not enough to like, oh, I need a shower after this. Like, yeah, there's a scene where you get to the bathroom scene,
Oh yeah.
and it's like obviously the trailers played it. It's the poster. It's
Yep.
probably the most iconic scene from this movie.
It's like a Shivers and Nightmare on Elm Street homage.
Yep. And then you get to, that these slugs are in the house and they kill her like little sisters. So you get like
Yeah.
kids dying in this too. And you get
Her
her
mom pukes up blood right in her face.
right in her face. Almost like a jump scare, but it's blood. Like
yeah.
out.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a great scene. It's a perfect, like, I understand why everybody loves it. It's not my favorite scene of the movie, but again, if you're marketing this movie specifically, I think that's a great scene to market it on.
When she gets out onto the roof and it starts like panning out and you see all of the like slugs
Coming
crawling up onto the port, like, oh God, it's so like it's genuinely terrifying. I love that sequence. So if that's not your favorite sequence in the movie, what is?
My favorite sequence in this movie?
Yeah.
I have so many. Like the
Yeah.
deer attack, like one of the deers like gets possessed and attacks Nathan Fillion.
Yep, that's when the teenage girl saves him.
Yep, in the police station. I love
Yep.
like the society ending where you find out like how he keeps getting bigger and like basically his zombie ghouls like go into his body and they start morphing into one.
And so like by the end, so like he can't talk, his mouth gets kind of like deformed and like melts through his face. And so like one of my favorite parts about the ending is that like the other people that he have melded into him are doing the speaking for him essentially. And not only is like the alien parasite is now in love with his wife, like it's almost taken that on from him, and it wants Starla for itself too, which is just such a I mean, it's like Creature. It's like Kong. Like the monster is in love with. She's even at one point in like a completely just like white nightgown, and it's like it can't get more Fey Ray than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, like it plays on that. Here's the thing with this movie: it plays on so many different things you've seen in other horror movies. But it has its own unique spin on everything. Like the Nightmare on Elm Street scene reference, with the slug. But again, it's a slug swimming at her. You have like King Kong, the damsel in distress, the femme fatale, the girl and the monster type of thing.
Yep.
You have Nathan Fillion who's playing a Carpenter character.
Yeah.
You have, like Night of the Creeps, or the Blob opening.
Gunn still posits he has never seen that movie. Or, I mean, maybe he has since. But I'm just like, I just don't know how you haven't at least seen a scene from that. You know what I mean? Like, maybe he didn't realize it, but I almost guarantee you when he was a kid, he had to have caught a scene or something on TV, because some of the stuff is just like too on the nose for it to be complete coincidence. And I'm not saying he like knowingly ripped it off. I just genuinely think like subconsciously he had to have seen something from that movie at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the other characters I want to talk about. One, just a quick shout out. Jenna Fisher is in this movie. She's basically playing Pam, but at the police station.
When she gets possessed, it's so great too.
Yeah. I love the mayor of this town, who like joins them on this, like they get like a almost like a militia together to go after Michael Rooker's character, and he's just the perfect asshole too. Like I love his introduction in this movie where he's like blaring on the horn, "Get the out of the way!" And you just see like a mom and daughter like staring at him.
Yep, and he just like sheepishly waves and like keeps driving. Yeah. Oh, the standoff in the field when you, because like there's the 3-day jump, right? Like after Grant shows Starla like his chesticles, his tentacles in his chest,
and the cops see it.
Yeah, and the cops see it. There's the 3-day time jump where they finally like corner him out in a field, and that scene is one of the best in the whole movie. The scene where
just splits the guy
the guy in half, and it's such a good meld of CG and practical. You get the intestines dumping out of him while he just like splits apart,
splits in half.
It's nasty, and it's so well done. Yeah. And then obviously that leads to the chase that leads them to the barn, that leads to the explosion of
all the slugs.
The slugs. And, you know, Nathan Fillion figures it out pretty quick that you have to cover your mouth in order to get them, to stop them from taking over, you know. But him and Starla and the mayor are really the only ones that survive that ordeal. The scene where all this, like where he jumps over Starla and like puts his hand over her mouth while he covers his own, and then the slugs just like converge over them.
Yeah.
Oh God, that fills me with such like dread. Like that is one of the most effective shots in the whole movie to me, is just them getting covered. I've always been kind of disgusted by that kind of stuff. Like the bug scene in The Mummy always messed me up. The scarabs. There's the fire ant scene in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Say what you will about that movie, that scene messed me up. Like there's something visceral about watching or a swarm of organisms that are smaller than you overpower someone by just sheer numbers. Like that's terrifying to me. So yeah, I love that sequence. I love this whole movie. We're talking about it. I'm like, I don't know. I might have to bump my star rating up after this episode.
So what are you giving Slither? How many slugs out of 5 are you giving Slither?
I gave Slither 4 out of 5 slugs. That's a solid rating. It's not my favorite Gunn, but I don't know. Slither just it rules. It really does.
It does.
Yeah. What did you give Slither?
Yeah, I gave it the same. I gave it 4 out of 5. I love this movie. I feel like it's pretty endlessly rewatchable. It's a ton of fun. The practical effects are amazing in this movie. I think all the performances are great. Like, again, you kind of like just hanging out in this town a little bit. So, like, it has that kind of vibe to it as well. Some great needle drops, of course, with Mr. Gunn. I love this movie. 4 out of 5 for me. Feast. What did you give Feast? I gave it 3.5.
Same. I also gave it 3.5. Sounds like we were pretty agreed upon on this one. I highly recommend both of these movies. I didn't watch them as a double feature. There were a few days in between them, but like I can't imagine a like a better mid 2000s double feature. It's so much fun. Like I don't know. Like they're two movies that go pretty seamlessly well together, I feel like, but are different enough to where you get two different experiences.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
This
love
is a
them
perfect
both.
like Friday night. You get with your friends. You buy a Domino's pizza, a couple 2 liters of Mountain Dew. You pop some popcorn, and you watch Feast and Slither, and it's one of the best nights of your life.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now that sounds really fun. I should have.
That does sound really fun. We should order pizza and drink Mountain Dew when we do our wrong
for the
turn
next
double
one.
feature.
Yeah, we're going to. We will. Okay, yeah, we got to make that happen.
Yep. And then we'll play like 2 hours of GameCube afterwards.
Yeah, we'll play GoldenEye afterwards.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, cool.
Sweet.
That's been our first of 2 Gross Aughts April double features. Our next one will be coming up in 2 weeks. We're talking we're talking Wrong Turn 1 and Wrong Turn 2. Does Wrong Turn 2 have a subtitle?
Yes. Wrong Turn 2 Dead Ahead.
Dead Ahead.
And that is so to pull back the curtain a little bit, the reason we're doing Wrong Turn and Wrong Turn 2 is because you haven't seen Wrong Turn 2 either, correct?
You haven't seen any wrong
turns.
Yep.
Okay. So I distinctly remember watching Wrong Turn way back when, probably like middle school. Grossed me out, freaked me out. Haven't watched it since. Haven't seen any of them. But recently, obviously because of Suitable Flesh, I've been really enjoying the works of Joe Lynch. And Joe Lynch, his feature directorial debut was Wrong Turn 2. And he's actually always spoken pretty highly of that movie. And so, I don't know, when we were talking about like what we wanted to do, it was kind of I had just bought Wrong Turn and Wrong Turn 2 in like a 2-pack on DVD. So I was like, let's just do that. And so we're gonna be covering the Wrong Turn duology, the first 2 movies in 2 weeks.
And we're totally gonna have a pizza party while we watch them.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be rad. I'm excited. All right, so that's the
That's it. Let's wrap it up.
No, we've got more.
I don't have much more.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I've got a list, but I'm gonna go through some of it pretty quick, I feel like.
Okay.
So we'll start with you though, because the one thing you'd have is also something I have, so it'll cross over well. So Casey, what have you been doing lately?
So before I get to the one movie I watched, since the last time we recorded, I've been watching so much wrestling. Like this was last weekend was WrestleMania weekend, and for me leading up to it and that entire weekend, like every year I do this, it's just wrestling. That's the only thing I have on my TV. And from Friday night at 6 o'clock when I got home from work until Sunday night at 10 o'clock, that's all I did was watch professional wrestling, and it was great. It was amazing. I loved it. Shout out Cody Rhodes, finished the goddamn story.
Shout out Seth Rollins for being the true MVP,
being his shield. It was awesome. Yeah, WrestleMania was amazing.
WrestleMania was great.
It was a blast, and so that's what I've been doing recently. That's why I don't have a whole lot of horror watches. I know you have 2 on there that I'm like, I need to watch those 2 new releases. So within the next couple weeks, I'll have those. But first of all, I got a couple purchases to show off here.
Sweet.
This one's in my hands for now. It's eventually going to be in your hands. It's the subscriber exclusive cover of Fangoria magazine featuring the Chucky TV show. It's the if you don't buy this magazine, we will kill Devon Sawa again cover. Such a great cover. This feels like such a 90s cover of Fangoria. I mean, Chucky alone feels very 90s, obviously, but like the photo shoot that Don Mancini and Devon Sawa, like it feels so 90s.
It does. Devon Sawa or Don Mancini also has the same Cavity Colors Child's Play 2 t-shirt that I have. It's wonderful. I love it.
You should just cosplay as Don Mancini.
Yeah, this year at SUPERCON, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna cosplay as Don. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I haven't dove into it yet, but
Well, I'm excited. I'm gonna get the newsstand cover, and I think we're gonna do a little bit of tradesies.
yeah, we're gonna do a little swapski.
So
And then next up, I got this in the mail. I know you got this as well. It is
yeah, I didn't bring mine in with me.
our own personal copies
Yes.
of Bad CGI Gator.
Yes.
One of the latest from Full Moon. We had the pleasure to do an interview on this show with director Danny Draven.
Yeah.
And guess what? That interview is on this Blu-ray.
It's so cool.
Guys, we are on a Full Moon Blu-ray.
And it's such a fun Full Moon too.
Yeah, it's such a fun movie. We had an absolute blast watching this. We had a blast talking to Danny about this. And I know he had a blast making this movie too. And he talks about that in this interview that's featured on this Blu-ray. We had to pick it up. I mean, how cool is that? This is the second interview that we've done that's made it to Blu-ray. That's pretty insane. That we have 2 interviews on Blu-rays. Maybe another one coming from what I hear from our boss. That might be coming, but yeah. So stay on the lookout for that. But yeah, our interview featured on Full Moon's Bad CGI Gator up on their website, fullmoonhorror.com. So if you want to get your copy of this movie to have your boys in Blu-ray form, us and a Bad CGI Gator on your Blu-ray shelf, go pick it up.
So Bad CGI Gator is also, I mean, I'll just say I have a lot of fun with that. It reminds me a lot of the feeling that I get when I watch Chopping Mall, where it's just like it knows what it's there to do, and it sets out to do it, and it does it perfectly within its runtime. Like it's light, it's breezy, it's so much fun. And I had a blast with Bad CGI Gator. Could not be more honored to be on the Blu-ray with it. So.
Yeah, like how insane is that though?
I know, it's crazy. Like I kind of have to pinch myself every once in a while because it's cool. It's super cool.
Yeah, I have yet to pop this in. Maybe it's not real. Maybe Danny's been ribbing us and just like put it on the back. But no,
he's just like psych.
No, we actually know that this is on this Blu-ray though, Sam.
Yeah, that's true. We got a shout out on socials.
Yeah, we got a shout out on socials about our interview. So that was super cool too. So yeah, go pick up a copy. Like we don't get anything from it, but you help support filmmakers that we're supporting. And if you buy the Blu-ray, that helps them out, and that helps us get more interviews as well. So shout out to the Full Moon fam for putting out that Blu-ray.
Yeah.
My one movie that I watched, again, speaking of interviews that we have done, it is our latest interview up on the channel right now in your podcast feeds. It is for the Shudder exclusive film Baghead, which just hit this Shudder this past weekend. We had the pleasure to speak with the film's director, Alberto Corredor. Awesome interview. Great chat with him.
Great guy.
Super, super fun, super down to earth. And we had an awesome chat with him. Baghead, the movie itself, we had a chance to watch before that interview. I had a ton of fun with this movie. Yeah. It is 90 minutes long. It's exactly what I want out of a 90-minute spooky supernatural horror movie.
Yeah.
It's exactly the type of scares that you would want from this. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It builds atmosphere. You have characters that, like, they're not like, oh my God, like this is one of my favorite horror characters ever, but it's like characters that you can latch onto for those 90 minutes. And you're like, all right, I'm on this journey with them. Let's go for this ride. I think the setting for this movie is incredible. I think it builds great atmosphere, has some great scares, also has some really fun, like, world building for the monster, the Baghead, which the setup of this movie is really fun and unique, where this girl inherits this really old bar from her father who passes away. and she inherits this bar and finds out that in the basement of this bar is this evil witch, Baghead.
No.
That you can go up to this witch, give them something that belongs to someone you know, and that the Baghead will transform into them for 2 minutes. But after those 2 minutes, it reverts back to Baghead, or Baghead basically takes over from the person you love. So you have to be very careful with using this power and abusing this power. And again, it's such a great setup. It's so many great twists and turns that can take you on. And Baghead's a ton of fun. Highly recommend this movie. Not just because we did an interview, but like I think that's a bonus. You can go watch the movie on Shudder and then check out our interview afterwards.
Yeah, and Alberto was really he was really open about going through like the sound design in particular, just like finding the places, like the sets. It was such a good interview that really got into the technical side of filmmaking, and then also just the challenges of adapting a short into a feature length, which is something this movie also does. Baghead's a ton of fun. It is a good Friday night get together with friends and have a good time kind of movie. It's solid, and I enjoyed it too. Yeah,
it's one of those movies where after you watch it, you're like, I want to watch something else now.
Yeah,
like it wants you. Like it feels like one of those movies where it's like, I want to keep this party going.
Yeah,
movies. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. It's a very good, like, if you're gonna just like sit around and watch horror movies with people all night, it's a really good like kickoff for that. Yeah. Yep. It doesn't go like super, super crazy, but it keeps you invested throughout its 90 minutes. And it has a really, like, in my opinion, like when it really kicks up the speed in the last like 15, I think that movie, like, I think the last 15 minutes of Baghead are pretty friggin' great.
Yeah.
So, I agree. I think Baghead is a win. It's on Shudder now. Check it out. Check out our interview. It was fun.
Sam, what about you? What besides Baghead have you been doing?
Okay, so I'm gonna be a little blasphemous on this pod. I sat down to watch the season premiere of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. He was playing a movie called Rotten Tail. I will just say Rotten Tail was not a movie for me. So I switched channels. I moved over to the SIOUXPERCON.
Yeah.
And it was playing Slumber Party Massacre. And I was like, oh, this is nice. This is maybe more my vibe tonight than Rotten Tail. Love you, Joe Bob. I'm tuning in. Well, when this drops, it'll be tonight. I don't know. I'm tuning in for the next one. I'm excited. Still love The Last Drive-In. Rotten Tail wasn't for me. I watched Slumber Party Massacre and Slumber Party Massacre 2. Both of those movies are incredible. They're two of my favorite, like, 80s slashers ever. Particularly 2.
Two rules. One
two
is a ton
is so
of fun,
good.
One is a ton of fun still. Yeah.
Yeah, one is kind of just like a quaint, just straight up 80s slasher, and then 2 goes wild with it. It's like Rockabilly Nightmare on Elm Street meets Slumber Party Massacre, which is so cool. I had a really fun time watching those.
Also, shout out Brink Stevens, who's in the first Slumber Party Massacre. Who will she'll be at the Little Con of Horrors in Council Bluffs with us as well.
Yeah, with us. That'll be
which is in
also in September.
Also in September, the first weekend of September.
Yeah.
We're busy that month.
We are. Don't call us during September. We won't answer.
No. Expect a very light schedule from us on this podcast in September, just a forewarning.
Yeah, probably no double feature episodes, probably just like vague topics that we can just kind of talk about.
Yeah, it might just be the stuff that we're doing that month. I don't know.
Yeah, it might just be recapping the fests and the cons and stuff.
Yeah.
Which that's fun too. So yeah, I watched both of the Slumber Party Massacres. This one I'm very excited to talk about. I want to do an episode on this sometime, or at the very least, I want to get a movie night together. I want to invite you and a bunch of our horror friends over, because for the first time since high school, I revisited I, Madman, which is a movie I know I've talked to you about extensively. It made a very big impact on me in high school. I found it very creepy and unsettling, and also just kind of bonkers and weird. And I am happy to say that it holds up to all of that. It's so I, Madman is it's a noir slasher fantasy directed by Tabor Cox, who did The Gate. And this was his follow-up to The Gate, and it follows Jenny Wright from Near Dark as this kind of timid bookworm who works in a bookstore. She is reading this book by a reclusive author that not much is known about him. And she picks up his latest, I, Madman, and begins reading it. And the killer in this story is seemingly now in the real world and coming after her and doing the things in the book, while she's trying to figure out the mystery behind who wrote this and why this is happening to her. It's got a great killer design, a great concept of him basically carving off his own face so that he can build a new, beautiful face for her so that she will fall in love with him. Parts like faces and facial body parts off of people around her and sewing them onto his own. So by the end, he's like all scarred up and he's got all these mismatched body parts all over his face. And there are long, slow, drawn out chases through like bookstores and apartment hallways and stairwells that are just tense and riveting. This is like a perfect rainy night kind of horror. I adored this on rewatch. It is honestly, dude, this movie was so good on rewatch. If I had rewatched it before we did our big 80s horror countdown back in 2020, it might have been one of my first picks for that list. I cannot wait to show you I, Madman. Right now, streaming wise, I have the out of print Scream Factory Blu-ray, but it is playing with ads on the Roku channel. I think that's the only place you can stream it right now. So it's a little hard to find, but if you can find it, and honestly, there might be a YouTube rip of it up.
Yeah.
I have no idea. So I just highly recommend checking out I, Madman to any of our listeners. It is such a good movie. It's so well put together. I can't believe Tabor did The Gate and this, and then I know he's done stuff since then, but it feels like he just had a 1-2 punch that he never got to follow up on. And part of that is both of those are pretty cult, like underground kind of I don't feel like the Gate's probably his biggest movie, but even that isn't like everybody knows The Gate, you know?
Sam, that should be our double feature because I've never seen The Gate either.
You haven't seen The Gate either?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we should do a Tabor double feature then. I think you would love The Gate. It's really like, not trying to make a pun, it is very good gateway horror. It really is. Like it's solid. And both of them have just very inventive practical effects and some really effective sequences. I really love both of those movies. So yeah. Anyways, had to gush about I, Madman. Really love that movie. Highly recommend people check that out. I've been binging The Vampire Diaries with Maria.
Okay.
I like the show. I am weirdly invested in this. Like, we are just getting into season 3 and I'm like, nah, you know what? Like, it's cheesy, it's CW, but I get why this was a phenomenon. It's at times it's definitely a Twilight ripoff. but it's Kevin Williamson's show running it, and sometimes that really does show through. I've found myself growing kind of attached to some of these characters, and the lore that they have around vampires and werewolves and all this stuff is actually pretty interesting. It's a different take on it, and I'm having fun with it. So yeah, never watched it before. Having a lot of fun about 2.5 seasons in. So that's Vampire Diaries. So I have watched 2 new releases from 2024 in the last 2 weeks. The first one I'll talk about is one that just got added to Peacock. I finally watched Night Swim. As anybody who listens to this show knows, I have a fear of water that you can't see the bottom of. Aquatic horror is definitely like one of my like, ooh, that's spooky. And Night Swim has a few sequences that really touched on that for me. I know this is not getting great reviews. I'm not going to argue with anybody and say like, oh no, Night Swim is like really misunderstood. It's a great movie. Like people are missing the mark on this, because they're not. Like Night Swim is very much a January horror movie. Like it was released in January for a reason. It's fine. It's nothing all that special, but I had fun with it. There are a couple sequences that I really like, and I genuinely think Wyatt Russell is like, he's really trying to elevate this material, and I kind of applaud him for that. There is a scene where he delivers the line, "We have a pool," in the most smug and smarmy way possible, and it's the best scene in the whole movie. It made me laugh so hard. I'm like, I need a GIF of just that line. I don't know when I'd ever use it. It brings me so much joy. Like I literally rewound it and watched it again because I was just like, God, that line delivery is incredible. So yeah, Night Swim. Check it out on Peacock. I would not spend money on it. But it's worth watching alone, just to watch Wyatt Russell get super baseball powers and say things like, "We have a pool." And
yeah, that's on my watch list now, especially now that it's streaming.
Yeah,
and I don't have to pay for it. Yeah,
you know what? It's 3 stars, probably too high, but I'm not gonna lie. I put it on a Friday afternoon, and I actually kind of had fun with it. So I don't know. I can't. The ending is terrible, by the way. The ending is really bad. Like the last 10 minutes, I'm just like, what? And yeah. But anyways, still slight recommendation under the caveat that it is a January horror movie, so go into it with that expectation. And then the other one, we got a screener for Sting, and I did not know if I was going to get to it, but I did. And Sting is a spider horror film, all set in an apartment building where this girl who has an estranged relationship, well, not an estranged, she has a not great relationship with her stepdad. It's kind of her family is a little mismatched. Her stepdad and her mom have just had a new baby. She's feeling a little alone. And one day she finds a spider who she names Sting. And this spider begins to grow at a rapid rate. And before you know it, it's starting to kill pets and people within the building. It's all set in the confines of an apartment. There's a big storm, a snowstorm that came. It's a comet horror movie. The spider comes from a comet. According to the movie's logic, the comet is the reason that all of this snow is happening, and they're all snowed in. The family drama gets to be a little much at times. There's a point in the third act where the emotional crux of the movie happens, and instead of getting choked up, I might have laughed a little bit. But
you're not the only person that I've said that I've heard that sentiment from.
Okay. I'm glad I'm not alone in that, because there were times where I was like, I know what this movie is trying to do, but and it's of no fault of the actors. I think the script just needed a few tweaks to make it a little less overt, you know, like it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, no, we get it. We don't need to have the characters say. Feels a little bit like Mac in one of the Lethal Weapon Sonnies, where he's like explaining everything directly into the camera at times. But where this movie shines is in the spider aspect. The practical and the CG effects are both really good. The spider sequences are awesome. The way they frame this spider is great. There is a shot of the spider coming down out of the garbage chute, and you just see its spindly legs first, and it's just so like, ugh, like really genuinely enjoyed Sting despite the drama that doesn't quite land all the time. It's a really fun like alien spider movie. I had a blast with it, so I would recommend Sting. I loved all the spider stuff. And it does, it has it tonally, it can kind of shift and not always quite have a firm grasp on what tone it wants, but for the most part it strikes a tonal balance that for me worked. There's quite a bit of humor in this movie, intentional humor in this movie too, especially involving like one character who's an exterminator in the movie. um yeah, I had a blast with Sting. I hope people check it out. I have a feeling that it's going to be um one that especially people who like those kinds of movies, those like animal attack movies, will latch on to, because it's very solid. It's got some great practical effects in it, and yeah, and the girl at the center of it all is really good. She's given a really good child acting performance. I was pretty impressed with that. Um, the last thing I wanted to talk about, I pre-ordered and got my pre-order of the latest Bad Hand book, Cranberry Cove by Haley Piper. I literally finished this book today. This is my favorite Bad Hand book so far. I adore this book. It was haunting, creepy. It's centered around a mob boss, or a mob enforcer, who is also a trans woman, and her cis partner investigating the sexual assault of the mob boss's son in this derelict, abandoned hotel that has been rumored to be haunted. And no one except for Emberly, the lead character in this organization, believes that it was anything supernatural. And it's about her investigation into finding out what really happened so that a gang war does not start in the streets. Not going to say anything plot wise beyond that. This book goes to some very unexpected places. It is a bleak ending and very much a page turner. Like I had a very hard time putting this down. Once I started this book, I did not put it down for I mean, it took me about 2 days to read it. And yeah, I loved it. Cranberry Cove, um just a rip roaring like mix of the occult, of crime drama, of ghost stories. Like, I don't know. This book is, I've never read anything quite like it. And that's kind of the theme with Bad Hand, and that's something that I enjoy. Every time I get a Bad Hand book, I know like this is the only company that I'm going to read something precisely like this in. And I think the we know, we know Doug. We've had him on the show. Um, the stories and the authors that he chooses to that he selects to boost and to publish, um, you can just tell that there's a lot of care that goes into that, and I appreciate that. And Cranberry Cove is just it's another home run. from Bad Hand, and I highly recommend everybody check that out and check out the other stuff that they've got going on. Because
shout out Doug Moreno at Bad Hand Book, friend of the show.
Yeah. That's what I've been doing, man. I got way more in these past few weeks than I thought I was going to. So yeah.
Well, cool. Well, that's it then. That's all we got for the show. We're gonna wrap things up here. We got a couple more plugs, and then we'll send everybody off on their merry way. First things first, I'm gonna bring it full circle. I'm gonna pull this up one more time, this graphic, because Felissa Rose, the one, the only mangled dick expert from Joe Bob Briggs, the Last Drive-In. Felissa Rose, the star of Sleepaway Camp, is coming to SuperCon here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, September 27th through the 29th. Get your tickets now, supercon.com. She's going to be there all weekend. Going to be a ton of fun. Felissa Rose, live in person at SuperCon here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But Sam, where can the people find us online?
Well, obviously, if you're watching this, you can live stream depending on our schedules. Before our episodes drop on Fridays, you can live stream our main feed episodes on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Yep.
I'm not gonna call
it. And if you are watching on the YouTube, and I know we got a couple people there, hit that like button. Come on. Drop a comment if you're watching along. Yeah, do all the stuff all the fancy YouTubers say. That would help us out, and we would appreciate it.
Yeah, it does. It helps us. It helps us find new people who might want to be part of our little horror clan that we've got growing. So yeah, we always love new people to talk horror with. If you don't watch the live streams and you'd rather watch it on your podcast feed, you can find us there on Apple, Spotify, and whatever other podcast. I mean, we're probably on a couple other ones, but those are the big two.
Yeah.
So check us out wherever you get podcasts. We are also on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. We've been having a lot of fun just doing different things on all of those different platforms. So check us out for even more content, unboxing videos and stuff like that. We're having fun with that. So
we certainly are. You can go to shop.fangoria.com. You can use that as our affiliate link whenever you're shopping Fangoria. You can use that to get subscriber exclusive covers to the Fangoria magazine. You can also use discount code Screens from the Basement. That'll help you on your annual subscription to Fangoria, as well as all the merch that is up on their site as well. So again, one more time, shop.fangoria.com/Screens from the Basement. Use that affiliate link. Then also check out our TeePublic store. You can find us, just simply search Screens from the Basement on TeePublic, or go to our social media channels and follow the links there.
Yeah.
Next week, we will have a brand new episode. We are talking with the writer. Let me pull these out here. There we go. We got to have a little visual graphic with these. We're talking with the writer and artist of a couple comic book series that are ongoing right now, including Army of Darkness Forever and Feral, which Feral just dropped. Army of Darkness Forever is about halfway through its run right now in comic book stores. We're joined by friend of the show, Tony Fleeks, a SuperCon staple. Tony Fleeks, awesome interview, awesome chat with him, all about Feral and Army of Darkness. So that drops next week in your podcast feeds, and for our subscribers on YouTube, you get the video version of that as well. And then in 2 weeks from now, like Sam said earlier, we're doing a Wrong Turn double feature, Wrong Turn 1 and 2 for Gross Aughts April. It's the last double feature, and that's a little sort of mini series that we're doing here for the month of April. So be on the lookout for that in a couple weeks.
Hell yeah.
All right, Sam, send the people home happy.
All right, guys. It's been a blast. Thanks for tuning in tonight, and sweet screams.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.